Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Cowboys Takeover. I'm your host, Jason Kent. And man, what a week 15 it was. Um, we we finally got served a little bit of humble pie after they've looked so great after these Dallas Cowboys team has looked so good, really coming in last few weeks. And just I feel like dominating, putting up so many points, and it feels like it's been this way all year. Just in the NFL, when you look across the league, the team that was the team that week, everybody was talking about. It feels like a lot of times that team has gone out the next week and just laid an egg, and it really feels like that after last week, after all of the praise and that Dallas has gotten, and really Dak as well. And that defense and just across the board. And this week it all came crashing down in spectacular fashion, I may add. It really felt, just talking with Aaron before we kicked off from drive one, it was not good. It just, the defense didn't look fantastic. And then, just too many penalties. We've talked all year about penalties. So that's something that just can't happen. I should have predicted. I remember thinking after this last week, Aaron and I, we did the show, the pregame show, and we both predicted victories. But as I sat there and I chewed on it a little bit more and really tried to think about it, when I saw that, it was kind of eating at me. It felt like a lot of things were playing against Dallas. And I did talk about it in the pregame with Aaron. We did discuss it. They're going to Buffalo. They're not an outdoor team. They don't play as well, and it really felt like that. They missed some opportunities. They just didn't look their typical self. So I don't. While this result hurts, I don't think it shocked me that much. And as much as I've said, I know I've talked a lot about my faith recently, especially if you guys if you were supporters of the show and you've listened for a while. I'm just not a Dak guy, and I haven't been. I've never been on the Dak wagon, the Dak train. I just felt like there was something missing from him to take him to the next level, if I say. But he just. I just wasn't sure he could be the guy to take us to that Super Bowl. So to me, it was tough. But sitting this year watching him play, I'm okay with this loss. I don't want to say okay with this loss. I'm okay with not putting it on him and thinking the sky is falling. Now, did he have mistakes? Yes. Was he as accurate as he should have been? No. But I just think he's been playing so hot recently that, that these games happen. We can't be upset. We can't be mad. Yes, as fans, Dallas was, we all believed as Cowboy fans that Dallas was in that race to get, a number one seed potentially, or even win the division. At least just win that division. And so you just weren't sure it's going to happen. So let me go ahead and bring in my co-host to discuss more. Aaron, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I just wasn't sure with the camera's not working, but we can still have you here, man. Like I was saying, it was just, I think that the big thing for me this week is still like when I look at the team and it hurt, and we'll definitely get into the miscues, but I think for me is not saying. And I'm sure I don't listen to much sports talk because I think it's all garbage anyway. But I'm sure there was a lot of Dak hate this morning. I'm sure Monday morning quarterback, especially if you Stephen A. Smith, I'm sure there was a lot of Dak smack talk, and you see that, in his MVP projections. I think he moved down to third or fourth now. But this game, and I think I'm pretty. It's safe. I'm at least for myself. Doesn't really do anything negatively for me to think that Dak can't still get us there. Do you feel that way as well?
I do feel that way, and I think once we're done with the podcast, followers and fans should have confidence that we're not hitting the panic button. There were some miscues, as we're going to be going over in a few, that really spiraled this game out of control. And I have some thoughts also to share as to why kind of this road performance of our team just hasn't been up to par.
And I agree. And the other question I think that we want to get into, and I think we'd be remiss if we didn't even talk about a little bit before we jump into those miscues. Like you said, there were a lot of them early that really set us back big time. But I think when you look at the overall game too, I don't think the missing of Hankins at this point could be understated for this defense, because I don't, this season they haven't looked that bad. I know Cooks was a guy I thought, that he's somebody potentially we had to watch for, and he showed us why. He's an incredible football player. But I don't think Dallas's rush defense is that bad. But I do think missing him played a huge role. Now you're down, so you have to play differently too. But I think missing him was huge towards later in the game when it started to get out of hand, because you couldn't stop their run game at all.
Right. Yeah, that was frustrating. We talked about that being a potential obstacle, but if you look at it on the flip side, I mean, Josh Allen had a total of 95 yards in this game. So, there are some things we can hang our cap on, but I mean, why don't we just kind of go ahead and dive into the first half? I mean, we have a lot of thoughts here. And I'm happy to kick us off there. So, first half, we slow them down. Our defense kind of typically takes time to settle in, and DQ kind of sees how the offense is attacking us, and I think that plays a role in it. And we get them to we get them stopped in the red zone, but DeMarcus Lawrence hits Josh Allen a little bit high in the neck area, and Josh does a good job with acting there.
That's ticky-tack. Still you did say it was, you messaged me early, like, yeah, it's bad. You don't make the play, but it's a ticky. I think it was a ticky-tack call. Come on. Just dude's like 6'5", 6'6", 240 pounds, and you're telling me a dude taps him and he's falling over like that? It's ticky-tack.
Yeah. So very frustrating, but they go 15 plays, just under 7 minutes, and basically, drain half the quarter there. And our response is a 10 play drive, 4 minutes, but it comes stalled because of a Tyler Smith penalty. So it not only stalled, but we move backwards. So, at that point, okay, I'm thinking in my mind, it should be at 3-0. We end up punting the ball back and force them in a
to me, at that point, it should still be 3-3 because we were in field goal range.
Yeah,
like that drive, it should at least be, to me, in my mind, at that point in this game, it should be 3-3 at worst at this point, and we're down 7-0.
Yeah, exactly. So it should be 3-3. We force them to punt. In their second possession, they take less than a minute off, and then we go 3 and out ourselves. Okay, so now at this point, I'm like, okay, both defenses have settled in. Let's see.
I do want to touch on, because we are talking about these first half miscues, right? And our first drive, you said, went 10 plays. That drive should have been over on play 2. Play. It was the second play. They have, in a team, Pollard play 1 4 yards, and a team that we discussed, we talked about, that was a big thing that Buffalo doesn't do. They don't give up the big play. And in that first drive, on the second play, you have Brandon Cooks behind everybody, about 5 yards behind everybody. If you make a good pass here, if you're Dak, so actually to me it should be 7-3, because Dak missed a wide open touchdown to start that game. So when you're looking at it too, they should have had a field goal, but they missed a potential opportunity to be up 7 or at least tie the game there. After how bad that penalty was and cost you, you had the chance to take the momentum right back on that your first offensive possession. And not only did you miss that, you also were in field goal range in, two penalties or one penalty and two negative plays. Now instead of a 7-7 game, it's a 7-0 game.
Yeah, and I call that as my one criticism on Dak, that his deep ball has not been very good this year. Let's call it what it is. Even when, if you remember the crucial third down deep pass to Gallup against the Eagles, I think it was in the third quarter, Gallup had to kind of leave his feet to catch that ball. And when we had Amari Cooper, he seemed to be a lot more accurate in dropping those balls in the right places. In this first half against the Bills, the weather was still in good condition. It hadn't been raining a lot. I don't know how you missed that ball. So that, to me, I was just very frustrated there. And his accuracy actually was an issue for the rest of the game.
Yeah. He didn't look good. And I think, I think all season, I think that's been the one knock is, a lot of his deep balls have been really uncatchable. Like they're just not, he's not giving his receivers a chance to go under him. And it's not like that possession, that play. There wasn't much pressure. He just straight up missed the pass. So you wonder what it is, because I don't remember him in the past looking this bad, but I feel like a lot of his deep balls this season haven't been that good. But like you said, we go out, we force them, we get a minute drive, right? 3 play, 3 and out. Dallas one-ups them with a 0-yard, 28-second drive and punts it. And then we come out like, okay, you feel like you said, it feels like everybody's starting to settle in here. In Dallas, you should have had a 5 play, defensive drive turnover, right? But no, Sam Williams, for as great as he's been this year, it hurt us there. He got in, it barely touched, and has an opportunity to block a punt at worst, put you in field goal position. At best, that possibly could have been when you're watching it, he just stays and runs, it hits him, that's a touchdown. Almost guaranteed. But instead of that, he leaves his feet out of the ball. The kicker's able to beautifully punt around him. And now it's roughing the kicker. So you get to extend that drive. So instead of now, putting you right back in the field goal range, they go down and score, put the game up 14-0. So at that point, how are you because I know at that point I was furious. I was just so upset with this team because not only were, we not doing the things we were supposed to be doing offensively and Dak looked so bad, but we were shooting ourselves in the foot with something that hasn't really cost us the last few weeks. And that's penalties. We had seemed to clean a lot of those up, but it just felt like this game, there was so many 15-yard, the personal fouls this week. It didn't look good in a game that I thought was pretty important. I know we all wanted to have, but they did not look. I didn't think it was that well. I don't know if it's coaching or whatever this week. They were feeling themselves, but once you're at that 14-0, how are you feeling?
Well, again, I was still confident because we were beating ourselves more so than the Bills were doing the damage. I think it was that second touchdown drive of theirs where Diggs fumbled the ball, right, and we didn't have enough time to challenge it. And then they have a 2nd and 19. Jaron Kearse comes up and has a personal foul against an illegal hit on a wide receiver. So from that should have been a 3rd and 19.
Yeah.
But instead they get a first down. So again, we keep shooting ourselves in the foot.
Personal foul. It's just those penalties can't, because and what makes it worse is all of those drives ended in touchdowns. each one of them.
Yeah, very
And that's
painful.
what really hurt.
So you give them momentum, and for me, I was like yelling at the TV for McCarthy to challenge the would be potential fumble play because the team just has momentum after momentum. At that point, just use it as a risk using it as a timeout. Let your team kind of regroup and gather themselves. But he ended up saying in the press conference that the coaches upstairs just didn't have a look. Um, at the replay. And I think the players could have done a better job at communicating, like, hey, it was at least really close. Because then if that goes our way, we get the ball around the 40-yard line again with some momentum, and Pollard is actually doing some damage on the ground. So the game's still well in hand. You don't have to change your game plan, but things continue to go the Bills' way, and it's just kind of frustrating. But if it were I'll say it now, if it were a Bills and Cowboys Super Bowl, I'm confident going into a rematch if that happens.
That's what I totally think. I agree. I think this game came down this because we held Josh Allen in check. I think it came down to a lot of those. What kills every team in games is the major penalties. The turnovers weren't really a factor. I know Dak had an interception, but that weren't a factor. The factor came down to Dallas wasn't able to execute offensively like they have been. They really held Dak in the check, and after that one overthrow, he had nobody down the field. They're two deep safety. They're letting Dak have the underneath stuff, and he just didn't look as solid as he has. And the defensive penalties. Anytime you get, anytime they're personal fouls, that's when you're starting to, you're really playing with fire. And when you have three of them on, two on third down that are turnovers, one's a turnover, one's a field goal, and another one on making it 3rd and 19, where most teams essentially just give up, and you turn it into a first down. I think it's tough. So I agree with you. I'm still 100% confident in this team's ability. To me, this game didn't show me anything other than they had an off week after being very hot. And it outside of the 72 Dolphins, everybody's lost. So I'm okay with it. I didn't believe we could have won the division anyway. So to me, this game not winning the division at this point. I'm realistic enough to say I really thought I want to keep a hold on that number 1 wild card seed. That was my goal going into this last stretch. That's what we need to focus most on. Like if we win out and get the division, great. Let's keep that number 1 wild card so we play whoever's in the NFC South. That's kind of my thought at this point. So I'm still confident, really against any team right now. I'm still confident against everyone. I still think this team on any Sunday can beat any other team in the NFL, even the 49ers.
Yes, I agree with you, and I would phrase it. It kind of the analogy ran this way in my head this time, which is, you and I have played a lot of like recreational sports where, in our, 20s or what have you. And I've been a part of teams where, you're just, you have games like the Cowboys have had where you have blowout wins and things are just jiving. But then there can come a game where you show up, you expect similar outcomes, but it just doesn't come together. I think we in some way have taken for granted all of the success that we have at home, that when we go away, you just assume it's going to happen for you. And, we've had a lot of quarters this year because of the blowouts where our guys are, just kind of out there. And let's be honest, maybe they're not playing 100% because you're up 20 plus points. I think the figure was Dak has missed like 4+ quarters this year. Like that's like a complete game that he's been pulled out from because of our lead in these blowout type of wins that we've had. So I think in my observation that some of that is playing a role where to a fault where we might be overconfident in some of these games that we can go and we play, and you have the miscues that you never really anticipate, and you think you can overcome. But against a team that is as good at home as they've been, like the Bills have as of late, they're everyone's kind of scary team to make a run in the AFC. So there's something to be said about that. I would it's kind of painful for me because the Giants were really close to beating this team, but granted that was like in September or early October. So take that for what it is. But yeah, I think to your point, we have a fighter's chance. And what I like and now appreciate about our schedule is that we have these playoff type teams to finish off the season with, because you do learn more about your team when you lose than when you win. So I think our team is going to make the most of this game. However, I would like to see us make some meaningful progress in Miami, but we'll be talking more about that on Thursday.
I agree. I agree 1,000% with you. I couldn't have said it better myself. I still think this team's ready. I do love the fact that we get Miami, we get Detroit. We're at a stretch now where we weren't sure where we were early in the season. But we're really this next 2 weeks we're gonna be testing ourselves. If we we'll discuss Miami and Detroit more, but if we come out and lose both those games, then maybe I'll have a worry. But after this week, not so much. I just think it's what it is. I think when you look at what went wrong with the offense, I think it's safe to say, Buffalo just plays the type of defense to shut them down. There were not big plays there. When you look at Dak's average yardage per complete, 3.9 yards per completion. So that really tells me, he had the one shot he missed, and in a game like this, that penalties destroyed you later. That shot right there could have been the difference. The not getting the roughing the passer could have been the difference early in the game to keep the momentum and keep it close enough till you figured it out. But with everything going wrong and kind of landsliding, kind of went downhill. Dak, I really felt like Dak was running a little bit for his life, even though he only had 3 sacks. It felt like that defensive line, did put a hurting on us. I did like to see the one thing I was super encouraged, and I do love to see the penalty where it did stink because it's offsetting now, but Martin standing up for Dak when I don't remember who came in. I think it was Taylor Rapp who does this a lot. I remember a few weeks back he hit somebody late in the head, but hit Dak, and then Martin just went over and just walked up to him, big dogged him, threw him right to the ground like he was nothing. It was pretty amusing. But it's tough to say really a lot. They just couldn't move the ball. I think that's when you look at what wrong with the offense. It got too out of hand to be able to continue to run the ball, and Buffalo just isn't a team. They don't play the style of defense. They're not going to blitz you a lot. They're going to make you drive the ball, and that was an issue this week.
Yeah, going into this game, we were both highly confident we would win in the trenches on both sides of the ball, and we did not. Our offensive line, just especially on third down, didn't give Dak enough time, to get his reads, and even when he was looking to scramble, those lanes were closed and someone was on him. So, Dak, who is number one, productivity in the league with third down, wasn't able to showcase that against the Bills. There were some instances where Greg Olson had mentioned that the Bills are showing one look and pulling into another. So whenever that happens unexpectedly as a quarterback, it can throw off your reads, make you second guess, and those are precious, milliseconds that go by. So, hats off to the Bills coaching staff. I do think that they did a fairly good job in preparing for this game, but that just kind of goes to show when you're a passing team in games like this where you're just trying to find momentum, just trying to fight for first downs. When your O-line can't create that, um, it, it really hits you in the foot, and we just couldn't get any momentum going. So I would say for me, the offensive line
Yeah.
was our biggest challenge in protection. Um, and then I guess I would probably second that with kind of Dak's accuracy. There were a couple times where our receivers had to play defender, and then
Oh,
we
quite a few. And the
yeah,
early in the game was one where Ferguson, if you hit him, I remember late in the game they mentioned it because they hit Ferguson, out in front of him. And there was a play early, I think it was one of the third downs where he even threw behind Ferguson, and um, Ferguson had to knock it down. There would have been interception. I think CD broke up a interception or two. He got CD murdered over the middle of the field late in the game, which I
yes,
was
he
not
did.
happy with. Because it's that late in the game, you don't need to make a throw like that to your number one receiver. I get you both care, but you got to protect your receiver there. So yeah, definitely Dak's accuracy had a lot to do with it, and yeah, it's just tough. And Buffalo, people forget because even though they're doing bad, they're still a good team. Um, and then when you look at the defensive side of the ball, it was tough because you heard them mention it all broadcast. Dallas's defense, very good defense playing in front. I know a lot of defenses are, but they are built in such a way that they rush the passer and create turnovers because of it. That's their MO. So when you're down 14-3, 21-3, and because I think Allen was 7 for 15 with like 60 something yards or 90 yards.
94 yards, yeah.
694 yards, 7 of 15, 94 yards. And so, like, when he had the pass, they were shutting him down. They played Diggs really well. They were he wasn't able to get there. But when you look at the flip side of it, they have James Cook, 25 rushes, 179 yards, and 1 touchdown. And then Ty Johnson, 9 for 54. Like, that's the game right there. They just could not stop that Bills rushing attack, which I didn't know the Bills had a rushing attack like that. I know they did mention, they fired their offensive coordinator and promoted their I think the quarterback coach up, and they said he really wants to have this team run the ball. And boy, I did not expect something like that. I did not think um, that James Cook was going to get 170 yards on us. It was, and it wasn't like he had a big 90-yard run. His long was
That's true.
24. So this dude he was just eating. It was just chunk play after chunk play. And we didn't have an answer. So I think, to me, that was what's wrong this week. But to me, that seems that if Hankins doesn't get back, with our real lack of depth at the linebacker position, I don't know if you want to see, looking in the playoffs, Eagles can run the ball and San Fran can run the ball. Buffalo, we saw what the AFC does, so they need to fix that. That's something DQ needs to, and it's probably just a one-off, but that did not look good. So to me, that's something they need to figure out quickly, because I think we know what we have with our defensive backs. We know what we have with our pass rush. We just have to clean up the penalties and the run defense.
Well, yeah, but I also think there's something to be said with Malik Hooker out for the game. One of our veteran, dependable safeties, because as a defensive coordinator, you want that. You want to play more smart, more conservative. When you have Thomas back there, who I think was the backup, come in, and he hasn't had a lot of reps this season. I was surprised they didn't really use. At least I didn't see Donovan Wilson back there more often. Because he was initially a safety, but we kind of use him as a hybrid kind of guy. Um, but to your point with allowing the rushing yards, it's not even that they were going up the middle; they went off the tackle every which way in every
Yeah.
direction. So it was a problem across the board. I think at that point you were probably better off with when you see a team carry it that much. consider moving Parsons to linebacker position and let him shoot these gaps and clean things up sideline to sideline. Because Sam Williams, I think, can be just as effective on the edge. So you don't lose a whole lot there, especially when you're focusing on the run. And we had some issues on the depth. And that reminds me of kind of a scary play. I think it was in the first half where someone rolled up on Parsons' knee. I'm not sure if you remember seeing that.
Yeah, I actually think Sam, if I believe correctly, somebody threw him into Parsons. That's what, like, it wasn't like when I first saw it, they just catch the end. But when you see somebody like that's, I'm sure they're going to talk about it in the coaching staff. When whoever is wrestling around with him threw the dude right into Parsons' knee. That was because I thought he was limping pretty good, and I was not look scary because you can't lose him.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, need to focus on the run again. You got to understand with Malik out, that's going to change how DQ is going to manage the play calling. But all in all, I mean, they did. It's kind of like right. They did have some stops, some 3-and-outs on the Bills in that first half. But the thing is, when the Cowboys, when you can't get time of possession, allow them to rest, just like anything else, they're out there, they're shooting at themselves in the foot with penalties, they get tired. So of course, when the Bills go with the run and you're tired, it's not a good scenario to be in. You're going to lose that more times than not. And I got to say, I'm really surprised as to how committed the Bills were to run the ball, because I kind of said they typically keep it in Josh's hands because they have that flashy type of play calling.
I agree with you 100%. I was sitting there watching, and you heard even the announcers. I'm thinking I would love to see games where Pollard is running good and then just let Pollard go. Because I feel like Dallas, they haven't, I don't know, because I think there has been games where I think Pollard has looked good and they just didn't give him the ball a lot. There have been other games he's looked terrible, but I wish that's something when he is looking good, that's something I think needs to happen, because it changes it up. It makes you unpredictable. Everybody knows Josh Allen's going to throw. No, I don't think anybody expected Cook to have that many. I think it was like 27 rushes. So it's 25, and they ran a total of 49 times. So
Crazy.
That's, in 40, if you take out Josh Allen's 8 rushes, so half of them may not be design runs. That's 41 times rushing the ball to 15 pass attempts. You don't see that in the NFL. And I think when you're running good, you got to stand behind it. I'd love to see McCarthy do something like that one game.
Yeah, that would be nice.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think with what we've covered, we should have confidence going forward and finishing out the season strong. Now, if the Eagles lose tonight, that's gonna it's gonna be a little bit frustrating. But then they're just kind of spiraling out of control. I mean, Jalen Hurts is ill, not sure if he's gonna play. So who's to blame for this loss?
I think, because at this point, I don't want to continue to blame coaches for penalties. So to me, it's the players. You have to know the position, know the situations. They have to be smarter there. Like DeMarcus Lawrence, that's not anything a coach can do to tell you to be smart. Sam Williams, I'm sure he'll be coached up, but I'm sure he's been coached enough to know not to, don't dive that. Like, they teach you to go. I remember in high school ball, they always told you, don't put your hands right, make a diamond, go at his foot. That's from high school up. So, and then, the roughing or the curse penalty. So to me, it's really just the players not being disciplined. To me, this loss is on them. It's on it's on those guys. It's on Dak for not, you're missing plays that you need to make. This was 100% not a coaching. There was no, to me, I don't want to blame. I'm not blaming McCarthy. I'm not blaming DQ. This one was on the players. they lost, and I get every game's on the players, but I think we've all seen it before. Coaching mistakes. This one, they personally they played too bad. They made too many mistakes, too many missed opportunities that at the end of the day you have to make to win an NFL game, and they just at every step of the game they shot themselves in the foot. So to me, it's on the players.
I think that's very well said. It's really kind of collectively on 5 or 6.
Yeah.
That makes me think of Sam Williams. Now it's like he's great at what he does, but he just makes kind of numbskull mistakes, like with the block punt. It's his second roughing the passer, maybe even third this year. And when you explain, you got to be smarter. And the Greg Olson was talking about it live. Like, you got to go after the foot, not so much, the body of the punter. And I was actually a little bit surprised that it was roughing the punter, because he didn't go after his plant foot. He kind of hit him in the body. So I thought it was.
I don't. Yeah, but when you hit a punter, like, I get what you're saying. At first, I'm like, he didn't go. My first thought was that may only be 5, but then I'm like, that was too much. Like, chest to chest, you can't hit a punter like that. But I did think it at first. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, but that's either way, still well said by you, because I think too many times it's easy to say, like you said, either coaches or the quarterback. Now, Dak didn't play well, but his team could have done a better job in keeping themselves in a better position throughout the game, because we just became way too desperate in the second half, and the rain started to come down for whatever that's worth.
Yeah.
So you go back, you look at the tape, you get coached on some of the things you missed, and you move on with really the same amount of confidence that you had going into that game.
To me, I'm throwing this tape away. I don't know what you take from it. Like, I get, Sam Williams, I'm sure you could show him, Lawrence, but don't do that. Curtis, don't do that. Like, to me, this game is with the Arizona game. I think all of our losses not much. Who's the fourth loss? So it's Arizona, San Fran. Oh, Eagles. So even the Eagles lost when I watched that one. Like, we outplayed them. So, like, I feel like the losses. I know they say you take more from losses, but I feel like, this game didn't. I just want to throw it out. I don't want to look at it. I don't want to hear about it. Let's get rid of it. Let's not even have that bad juju come into our office. I don't need those penalties. I don't want it back.
I think there's some things that can be taken for Dak and McCarthy because of the looks we got. I think Dak held onto the ball a little bit more than he typically does in this game. So I think, we're going to want to. I think other teams might try to replicate that. So you gotta prepare for that. So to me, I think Dak looks at the tape, the offensive coordinator McCarthy. But to your point, I would be fine. With just like you said, from what you said from a defensive tape perspective. But yeah, I mean, it's the good thing is it's not the panic button. I feel like we lost the game more so than the Bills won the game.
I'm right there with you, and I think to me this week, I think, like Aaron said, starting out when he came on. Nothing about this show says hit panic button yet. Nothing. If there's any takeaway, it's we still believe. I still think, like you said, with the Dak mistake. Yes, Dak played so good. I'm okay to write this game off the Dak as just a bad game. I think when we come into Miami next week, I'm sure Aaron agrees, we're going to see a different team. So I think we just throw this game away. It's 1 week. I think all of us as fans, like I said earlier, deep down inside, it was tough to expect a division just because we could have won out and still not been the division champ. So it's tough to really have faith in it. But we need to start looking good. This is 1 week. I'm not panicking. I think we come out this week and we look good. These next 2 weeks are going to give us more. Once you add this in, if you look at 3 total, I think when you look at combined, I think that'll give you more of a picture. But I think we just throw this one away. which is great. And we want to thank you, every one of you who checked in today, stopped in to give us a little bit of a watch, commentate, just talk. We appreciate you all. You give us we just want to let you know you can watch us on Facebook and YouTube, and follow us on all of our social medias. Cowboys Takeover Podcast. So Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Give us a like, give us a follow. Drop in, leave a comment, and then on the YouTube. You can watch us there, subscribe there, whatever YouTube allows you to do. You can catch our podcast there. We have 2 a week, pregame, postgame, and then you grab us wherever your podcasting needs are. We just really want to thank you, appreciate you all. Enjoy. We'll be back Thursday with the pregame for this weekend's matchup against the Miami Dolphins, who are in the running for number 1 seed in the AFC. So it'll be a very, very tough matchup. Another one of those line of just tough teams we have to play. But like Aaron said earlier, comes at a great time. We're going to know who we are come playoffs. So I don't think this could have come at a better time. For Mr. Aaron James, I'm Jason Kent. We appreciate you all. We'll see you Thursday. Enjoy your night.